Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're going to have a great show. Can we communicate with aliens as human beings? Serena DC, Paul Hynek, the most unfunny man in the UFO business, is here tonight. And you'll know that by his accountant hairdo. I'm just going to say that right now, right off the bat, get it going, because I love Paul, and it's just an ongoing joke that we have. We got all of you here as well, including Frankie B in the gold medal position. Mama Catherine, taking home a silver tonight. Love you, Mama Catherine. Race fan with a bronze medal. Hi, Forrest Louis. Cielo, how you doing? And Richard Minnick. Kitty Cattywhack, good to see you all. Hi, Necessary Dialogue. Good to have you here as we continue on with our roll call tonight. Mel WD-40 is here, lubing us up for tonight's show, because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. You don't want any of that rigidness. It never feels good. So Mel lubes us up each and every night. Richard Minnick, thank you for kicking off the Super Chat this tonight and this week. Very much appreciate your love of SOR. Bar Madison is here. Bar Madison will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Kicking on back, we got Karen in the Woo Train, Paul Demon, Monica, how are you? Jay Truthseeker is here. Jay Truthseeker will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Continuing on here, we are going to scroll on down. We got Skip to Malou. Good morning to you. Ms. Mary, how are you? Supernower, Jennifer Beveridge, good to have you all here in the studio. Road Flare, Dragonfly, thank you all for coming on in. Digger Dog, Super Crazy, thank you for coming on in. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Scrolling on down, we got Millennium, my man, Gory Tiger, W. David Page, Ethanol, Thomas Rock. Good to have you all here tonight. Hi there, Kimberly Burgess, Hillbilly Herb, Brad Ford, welcome to SOR Chat again. Rock and Rory, good to see you. JSCO, Stephen Finnegan, good morning to you in the UK. Joel over on X, the one thing you always know about Joel, his goatee and his hair are always tight. Always tight. That's why he also believes UFOs are not UAP and UAP are not UFOs. Lisa Smith, Captain K-Rod, and Kurt M. Good to have you here. Latchkey, thanks for coming on in tonight. Just another guy named Harry. And Human Carl is here, a great veteran of the United States Air Force. We love you, Human Carl. Hope you have a great night. Brown Dwarf, Pam Harris, our resident hippie Deidre, wearing her flashy colored Birkenstocks tonight over on Vancouver Island. Thank you for joining us. As we scroll on down here, let's see. Thomas Rock again. And Glenn John McEnroe, the pride of Wimbledon. Noble Patrick, good to see you. And Marty Burback, thanks for coming on in. Invisible Tracker, good to have you here. Beelzebrad has a devil put aside for me, for me, for me. Good to have you here, my friend. Terrence Wills, thanks for coming on in. Fapster, Scott Taylor, good to have you here. So we continue on with our roll call here quickly. So we are running out of time. Two heads, Jeff Steve Garvey, he'll hit a home run for you. BW, Audra Lynn, welcome to SOR Chat. As we continue on with our roll call, Yennefer, she prefers a soft J. Here we go with the radio side. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Serena DC, Paul Hynek are here. Can we communicate with aliens? We're going to get into this momentarily as we are currently on roll call on our YouTube chat room. Resonate, how are you tonight? Matthew Goodka, good to have you here as we continue on, scrolling on down. Eternity Eternal. Larry Bonds, the home run champ, right there. And who else is next here? We have Warframe Player. Welcome to SOR Chat. As we scroll on down, if you want to help book a guest, go to bookings@spacedoutradio.com. And Jessica S. Political Foolishness. Michael Gutierrez. Good to have you all here. Once again, the Super Chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis and shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. Hordes up. Let's rock. The mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world. This, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features. Rock out Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our site as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a power show of awesomeness tonight. We're going to look into communication with aliens. Serena DC, movie maker, is here, along with the most unfunniest guy in ufology, Paul Hynek. We love Paul around here. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller will bring us the cryptid story of the night. Then right after that, it's a UFO report with our good friend Little Timmy James. Let's get right to it. Serena DC is a prolific award-winning director, writer, host, and investigative filmmaker, celebrated for her visionary contributions to television and film as the founder of the acclaimed production house Elysium Media. Serena continues to push boundaries in storytelling, which have led her to launch Spark, her own AVOD platform. Yeah, she is currently filming the sequel to This Is Not a Hoax, the Nazca Alien Mummies cover-up, and The Embassy, and it is excited to share more disclosures and information about that coming up very soon. We're also joined by Paul Hynek. He is a Wharton MBA, professor of finance and cryptocurrency at Pepperdine University, creator of Easy Numbers financial projection software, and has helped thousands of startups raise over $2 billion. Paul introduced the world's first online service with Kids Stage with Bill Gates and worked on Avatar, Lord of the Rings, Planet of the Apes, and numerous other movies and games. Paul is a grant reviewer for the National Science Foundation, and he's most known for being the son of J. Allen Hynek and building upon his father's close encounters classification system to help experiencers demonstrate the objective reality of their own encounters. If that doesn't sound like a power show tonight, I don't know what is. Paul Hynek, Serena DC, welcome to Spaced Out Radio, Paul. It's been a while since we've had you here. How you doing, my friend?
Well, if it isn't the love child of Mrs. Santa Claus and Bigfoot, Dave Scott in the flesh.
Mm-hmm. And here we go. 2 hours of this now. 2 hours of pure insults by Paul Hynek here on this show. And, honestly, people need to know that you and I have a little bit of a history going at conferences. And it started out in San Francisco a few years ago, where I kind of, had seen you speak the year before, and you kind of were getting the crowd going, and it was actually quite funny. But I decided I'm going to go the opposite, say you're not a funny guy. And so I put in my presentation that you weren't funny, the most unfunny guy. And then at MUFON, when we spoke at the MUFON conference in Denver, I put that into my slide film as well. And then you came right at me from the floor, telling me that I wasn't funny. Then you put it in your presentation. And both of us actually had people coming up to us saying, you guys don't like each other? Like, what's going on? What's this history? I thought it was hilarious, Paul.
Not funny at all, Dave. Not funny.
No, not at all. Serena, you are a movie maker extraordinaire.
Yeah.
Not only do you have nice hair, but you make a good quality film as well.
Thanks, man. You make a good quality podcast. So we're all in a good company here.
I appreciate that. I put my shorts on one leg at a time, even though they're only a half leg. But pants is another story. But tell us about you. How did you get involved not only in movies and creating them behind the scenes, but really delving into these darker subjects?
I guess I'd always been really into the whole genre. I'm fascinated with the unknown, and, I find regular life on Earth pretty boring. So I was always into the occult and into all things sort of, extraterrestrials and space. But then during COVID, I actually watched Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which was an incredible movie that told you that you could go and meditate outside and basically make contact with ETs. And so, we were in lockdown and we drove out to the countryside and we did CE5, me and my partner at the time, Evan, and we saw a massive UFO, and it basically changed the trajectory of my life forever. After that, I went home and I DM'd Dr. Stephen Greer, and we got on the phone with each other, and I was just like, oh my God, like, I can't believe this has happened and I want to make a movie with you. So we met up and we made contact, the CE5 Experience, and since then I guess I've been down the rabbit hole. And what I'm finding is the deeper I go, the deeper the hole is, and the more crazy stuff keeps being revealed.
These topics are addicting, Serena, once you really delve into them, because it's more than just UFOs. It's more than just Bigfoot. It's more than just Paul Hynek's hair or any type of paranormal ghostly activity. Just for you, my friend, as you kind of delve into this, what was something you learned about the entire phenomena that, as an outsider looking in previous, you didn't realize?
Me or Paul?
You.
Oh, me. No. Well, I mean, I was never really an outsider. Like, I'd always been really obsessed with aliens and UFOs and things like that. But it's like with ghosts, you've got two sets of people that believe that there's an afterlife and people that believe that when we die, there's basically nothing. And I'd always believed in ghosts, but I'd never seen one before. And then when I did see one, it changed everything for me, because, this cool idea that I had actually was real. And it was the same with extraterrestrial life. I always believed that logically there was something out there, that we weren't alone, but to actually see it with your own eyes just has so much power, because it makes you realize, wow, I'm literally not alone. And it became an obsession for me, because I wanted to help everyone else to see what I had seen, because once you've seen it with your own eyes, then there's no question that it's real, right?
Well, of course. Paul, you are best known for being the lovely son of Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who, after all these years, is still quite beloved by the UFO world as one of the most rational thinkers of this field of knowledge. And I got to tell you, I know your dad hasn't been with us for a long time, but God, you got a great job. I know we joke a lot, Paul, but you got a great job going to all these conferences and speaking engagements just to talk about, never mind what you've learned, but to get to talk about your dad all the time. That's got to be great for you.
Well, it's pretty easy, just being somebody's son. I kind of wake up and I fit into those shoes right away. But it's a phenomena, like Serena said, that once you have some exposure to it from one angle or another, it's just fascinating. And no matter where you land on the belief or acceptance spectrum, it's one of the most important questions there is. So happy to be involved in some small way in trying to untie that cosmic Gordian knot.
You totally dodged my question there. Totally dodged.
He's an artful dodger. That is for sure. I've interviewed Paul multiple times, and good luck. Good luck trying to stick to your narrative, because he's got his own that he likes to kind of.
I know that, and honestly, I know Paul and I bug each other quite a bit. We have a lot of fun, but he is honestly one of the. I think that everybody in the UFO field should actually look to Paul Hynek as a mentor in this field. He's knowledgeable, he's scientific, he understands that there's more to this than just basic science that we know of today, whether it's physics, chemistry, biology. He wants hard evidence, but he's also open-minded to the fact that in some cases there is not a lot of evidence to this, and you have to go and work with an anecdotal story. Mm-hmm. And Serena, I mean, to work with somebody like Paul on your film here, I mean, what an honor to be able to work with somebody with like that, with that integrity.
It was such an honor, Paul, to work with you. No, but it's true. Like Paul and I've become friends now. I love this man, and we've had a lot of casual encounters together, which is like so fun. But on a serious note, the reason that I wanted to have him in this film that I guess we're going to talk about in a minute was because the film's about interviewing somebody that claims to channel an extraterrestrial, mm-hmm. and looking at the amazing J. Allen Hynek, and then with Paul, both of them have created protocols that allow us to I guess define the type of encounter that we're having, or if a person feels as though they've seen a UFO or had contact with an extraterrestrial or something like that. Paul's developed a way, which I'm sure he'll go through in a minute. Paul's developed a way that a person can, I guess, fact check themselves and what they saw to decide whether or not they think it was actually an extraterrestrial encounter, or if maybe it could be something else. So I really wanted to work with Paul on this movie because it was important for me to be able to give the audience or like the full story, a very unbiased look at this man, Bashar, to see if whether or not he was actually channeling an ET.
Tell us about your film.
Okay, so it's called Interview with the Extraterrestrial. So anyone that's watching this podcast, I'm sure, is obsessed with the idea of being able to have contact with a being from another planet, and also understands like the weight of the first conversation you would have with that being, because there's so many things about humanity that we don't understand. Like the mind boggles when you think about the fact that we have no idea where we came from, no idea who we are, no idea what our purpose is, no idea what we were doing 10,000 years ago, except for 100,000 years ago being cavemen. I mean, there's so many questions, right? Like, what the hell is going on? And so I wanted to make this movie Interview with an Extraterrestrial because this man, Daryl Anker, says that he channels an ET called Bashar, and that if I sat down in front of him whilst he was channeling, I would literally be speaking to an extraterrestrial consciousnness. And so that's what this movie is about, sitting down with Bashar and asking him all of the questions, trying to find out solve the riddles of the universe. But before I sit down and interview him, I wanted to speak to people like Paul. We also talked to Sarah Brescoming Cosme and a few others so that we could learn more about consciousness and also about whether or not this guy was telling the truth.
What did you learn?
Was he Paul?
Oh, well, I can't speak to whether he's telling the truth. And as Serena mentioned, my brother Joel and I have a protocol to inculcate into experiencer communities to help people who want to demonstrate that their experiences are objectively real. Many people don't care about that, but for those who do, a way to help determine that. And so I was happy to work with Serena and give her questions to ask Bashar. And I can't say whether he's real or not, but asking those questions shed some light on it.
Take us through that. How do you determine this, Paul?
Well, there's different kinds. So like my father came up with the close encounters classification system. And that speaks to the type of encounter, but it doesn't talk to the type and strength of the evidence. So my brother Joel and I are coming up with something to sort of piggyback on that, to speak more to the quality of the evidence. So we have different categories and different levels of the strength of the evidence. And the evidence can be technological. Like if you have a flying saucer, that's a pretty good piece of evidence for us. But we don't always have that. We have conversations like Serena had with Bashar. So you can ask questions trying to get unambiguous answers of information that a normal person shouldn't have. And a gold standard for that would be a very difficult mathematical question. And so, you ask questions and you try to get information that you can verify that's not easily ascertainable. That's the crux of it. And if they have more than information, all the better.
Paul, out of all the experiencers that you have had conversations with over the years, how many of them do you think are making it up? How many do you think are real? How many do you think are maybe cross-referencing dreams compared to actual encounters? I mean, there's got to be a big number on that.
Yeah, I don't go about deciding whether someone is, in my mind, is telling the truth or not. There are some folks who you meet who just ooze credibility. And one name that comes up is Kevin Day, who was the radar operator on the USS Princeton, which is in the same battle strike group as the USS Nimitz in 2004 for the Tic Tac sightings. And this is a career Navy veteran who had nothing to do with UFOs, didn't want to see anything. And to this day, you can see he's somewhat traumatized by what happened because he's always concerned for the safety of the aviators. So you see someone like Kevin Day, and I just don't think he's making stuff up. And especially in that case, there's multiple other witnesses and gun camera footage and high binoculars and radar corroboration. So a lot of these people that you meet, they feel sincere. It doesn't necessarily mean that what they say happened in the way that they interpreted it happened, kind of what you mentioned, Dave, but that clearly they believe something happened. There are others who are less so, but now we have hundreds, if not thousands, of really solid cases with multiple witnesses, machine diagnostic corroboration, and folks who just are very credible by dint of being an Air Force pilot or having nothing to gain from the incident. So, I've seen a lot of people in my life who you hear them talk and you just think that this is not made up at all. And it just leaves you trying to figure out how to fit that into the fabric of your own reality.
Yeah, I bet. Serena, when you hear that and you hear the way Paul kind of breaks it down, I mean, that obviously knows you're dealing with some sort of credibility when you're putting it on film in trying to determine whether or not somebody's a shyster trying to get clicks or whether somebody's actually communicating with aliens.
Yeah, that's correct. And, to give you some context, I've probably interviewed over 1,000 people. So many people in this world, a lot of people that are that claim to be abductees. So I've had a lot of experience with sitting right opposite somebody and staring in their eyes as they're telling me their stories. I also have a degree in psychology. The only reason I'm mentioning that is because what they teach you in psychology you think they're going to teach you how to heal people. They don't, but they do teach you about how the human mind works. And you also learn how to know if somebody's lying or if they're telling the truth. And I've sat down with many abductees, and for the most part, you can tell that these people are victims of trauma. They've suffered something that was incredibly profound and incredibly traumatic and painful for them. But there's others, and you can really tell that they're not telling the truth. Their stories seem rehearsed. And when they say that they were really scared, instead of saying, he walked into the room and I was so scared, they don't say that. They're like, yeah, I was like really scared. And when you have people coming across to you like that, you're like, okay, that doesn't kind of seem real. And so with Bashar, sitting down opposite him, let me give you some, let me backtrack a little bit. So this is a man that is in his mid-70s. I got to know him as Daryl Anchor. So I got to know him when he wasn't channeling first. We spent many days together. He allowed me to shadow him and, follow him to his businesses and to his home. I met his wife, and who I got to hang out with was a really friendly grandpa. He was like hanging out with my dad or with my grandpa. He was the nicest, sweetest guy. We would sit on his back patio outside and drink tea and talk about animals and like really regular things. An intelligent man, but still just a normal, regular guy. But then sitting across from him as he shifted into or let the entity come into him and he became Bashar, it was like sitting across from a 45-year-old genius. It was like sitting across from somebody that was incredibly smart, incredibly switched on, fast, quick-witted, with a completely different tonality of voice, different posture and stature to him. I was convinced, absolutely convinced. Yeah. But I could be wrong. And he could be a charlatan. Who knows?
Why did you choose Bashar?
I always feel like with my career personally, I'm being guided by something else, something bigger. So, it was weird. One night I went to sleep and I had a dream, and I dreamt that I met an extraterrestrial, and the extraterrestrial's name was Bashar. And the extraterrestrial looked to me like, those ones in that movie Communion that are sort of small and squished and blue and freaky looking. That's kind of what I saw. Anyway, I woke up the next day, no big deal. And then somebody sends me a video and they say, hey, have you seen this guy before? And it was a video of Bashar, and he was channeling. And it was just the weirdest thing where you hear, I just heard that name for the first time in my life. Now someone's just sent me this video, it was crazy. And then about an hour later, I was on Facebook, and my friend Jimmy Church, it was on there, and he was posting that he was going to be at the Conscious Life Expo in LA. And so I just, Jimmy's going to be there. I'm on my phone seeing who's going to be there, just interested, scrolling away. And I see Bashar's going to be there. So I ring up Jimmy and I'm like, bro, can you get me into this event? Can you get me in to meet him? And he's like, yeah, I'm the MC. Come on. So he whisks me through the crowd, puts me front row and center. And within 24 hours of dreaming about Bashar, I'm sitting in front of him. It was the most surreal thing ever. And then afterward, because I was so blown away by his performance, I went up to him and I said, can we make a movie together? And he's like, sure. So that's kind of how it happened. It was really weird.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was meant to be. It was definitely meant to be.
It's nice when a plan comes together so easily.
Well, I mean, it seems easy, and maybe it was, or maybe it was by design. I like to kind of think it was by design. You know what I mean, Dave?
I wouldn't know. I don't have aliens like Paul does.
I've been to his house. There's definitely some aliens around.
Oh,
around that area. That's for sure.
He just doesn't like to admit it. He doesn't. He doesn't like to admit it. Paul, Serena, I'm going to get you guys to hold on right there. Hard to believe we're already through 30 minutes on this show on Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. What is it like to communicate with an extraterrestrial? Have you done it before? Do you want to do it? Do you want to know how? We're going to see if we can figure that out when we return on the mighty SOR, Communication with Aliens. Paul Hynek, Serena DC, here on Spaced Out Radio. We'll be right back, everybody.
Hear
All
me?
right, go ahead.
Hey, Serena, I didn't know that's when you met Daryl.
Yeah, like not last year, year before.
Yeah, because when he was speaking, Richard Dolan and I were speaking across the hall in the other room.
Are you serious?
Yeah, yeah.
That's trippy. Yeah, that's when I met him. It was crazy. Jimmy hooked me up. Yeah.
Jimmy's good people.
That's when I met Jason too. So it was like the best night ever and the worst night ever. Jason Sherka. Oh, what I would give to not have had that meeting, I tell you. Christ. So what do you want to talk about next, Dave?
I don't know.
Should we get weird and trippy?
Talk about Dave's Bigfoot sighting.
Yeah.
There's Blob. We got a Blob sighting.
Hey, Serena, you gotta say where the movie is. You gotta plug the movie.
Yeah, totally. What is in the who is Dirty Filth, and is that a cat?
Yeah, that's Blob the cat.
Hey, Dirty Filth and Blob the cat.
Wow.
Star around here.
Blob the cat. Dominate.
Yeah, she's out of control. Come on, Blob. She's 9,000 years old, so I let it slide.
Yeah.
She comes in. She's Dirty Filth's harshest critic.
She's so cute.
Dirty Filth is the one who actually booked you for this show.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
He draws awesome cartoons.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah. You can get me a stick of gum later.
You know it.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, Blob.
Yeah. We this year was actually pretty active at our Bigfoot spot. It's kind of
Tell
cool.
me about it. What have you seen? Tell me everything.
Found this spot in 2022. I'd been to that spot probably about 80, 90 times beforehand, not even thinking about it. And we started finding footprints there. It started with 13-inch tracks and then 15-inch tracks.
Was it your dad or your mom? Mr. Bigfoot or Mrs. Claus? All I got is stoic, straight face from Dave Scott.
Then in 2022, Canadian Thanksgiving, we had a sighting of a 10-footer.
Wow. What do you mean sighting though? Like what did you see?
He was standing there staring at us, like the typical Bigfoot pose.
Like this? That's normally the pose, right?
Yeah, walking, less walking like an Egyptian and more Sasquatch.
Yeah, okay.
And hi, Tim Mothman and his goatee. Marco, how you doing? And 4 of us saw him. And about 15 minutes after we saw him, we heard his friend way off in the distance wooing at us. That was kind of cool.
Wow.
And about 15 minutes after that, we got wooed at again. And this year, we found a tree that had been unnaturally bent over, and the tip of the tree was tucked under a log that had been fallen for at least 2 years. Like 18 inches of the tree top was tucked under a log. That was kind of cool. We found 2 19-inch tracks this year.
Wow.
We had one sighting. I didn't see it. My friend Tim, who's my UFO guy, he had the sighting.
So do you think, I've interviewed a few people about Bigfoot. I know Dave Politis and people like that. And like, you know, there's lots of different schools of thought about what they are. Do you think that it's like an interdimensional being? Do you think it was like an extraterrestrial race that got left here? Do you think it was the missing link between monkey and human? Like, what do you think it is?
I think we're dealing with an interdimensional species that has supernatural powers that can walk within 2 dimensions at once.
So they come and they go and they come and they go.
I don't believe that they're forest people who need voting rights. You know, like the hippies tend to believe. I don't believe it's flesh and blood, but I do believe it feeds.
You don't believe it's flesh and blood, but you do believe it feeds.
But
meaning that it's
I mean by flesh and blood would be like human.
Oh,
like a monkey or
okay. So it's a different species completely.
We would not just get one print. And if you notice, most of it is one print. We're coming back in 3 seconds, so we'll continue this in the next break. Here we go with the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We're talking about communication with aliens. Serena DC, Paul Hynek here with us tonight. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives by going to YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. What's it like to talk with extraterrestrials? That's all in a new film from Serena DC. Paul Hynek has a cameo appearance in that, showing off his professionalism, all while wearing a UFO cape. Serena, let's talk about this. Did you believe in communication with aliens before you met Darryl Anka and Bashar?
Yes, I did. I believe because, you know, I've sort of delved heavily into the whole CE5 world and have had many, many experiences where I have felt as though I'm having some form of telepathic connection to another being. Strange occurrences have happened to me that are very different from a lot of the things that I've heard from abductees. Let me give you an example. So one time I was in an airplane and I was like half asleep. You know, when you're kind of dozing, you're not really asleep, but you're not really awake. And we were flying from LA to London and flying over Stonehenge. I'm like, what's that stone circle called? Flying over Stonehenge. Anyway, so I'm half asleep, my eyes are closed, and I hear this voice in my head, as loud as you can imagine, saying, open your eyes, open your eyes. So I open my eyes, and then they're like, look out the window, look out the window. So I pull up the little flap and I look out the window and I see 3 orbs of light, which I'll post on your page later. I've got a video of it and a few photos that I took. 3 orbs of light just dancing around like this over Stonehenge. And they were there for maybe, I think the video is around 11, 12 seconds, and then they just kind of dissipated. And so that's the kind of weird contact that I get. It's like when they or whatever is reaching out to me, it's done very subtly. And I believe I'm being contacted just for them to say, we are here, keep doing what you're doing. We are here, you haven't gone mad, keep making the movies, keep, you know, going down the rabbit hole, keep trying to figure out what's going on, keep sharing our story with the world, you know? So I have had my own types of contact, but when you look at someone like Darryl, that's literally letting a being into their body, a sentient being that can have a full-on conversation with you, you know, that was new. That was something I never experienced before.
For some people, they say, you know, that this is somebody who's making it up for publicity. This is somebody who is, you know, you can't really channel aliens. You can't channel ghosts or spirits, you know, but usually the people who say that they've never really looked into it. They're flashing their opinion as fact. Paul, you have been somebody who has been in this for a while, and you know Darryl Anka, you know how he channels Bashar. What's your opinion on this? Do you think it's it's something that he's correctly doing?
I don't know. I'll say that I think he believes it. He's a very credible guy. It just seems like it'd be a very long running con to do that for so many years. But he's consistent about it, and he strikes me as a sincere guy. Doesn't necessarily mean that he is channeling an extraterrestrial. I don't know. And, Serena was kind enough to ask him questions that I gave her. And they're very narrow in focus, and they can't disprove anything. All they can do is perhaps add a little bit more evidentiary value to the claims that he's made.
Have you ever channeled before, Serena?
Yeah, I have.
So I have too.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, in 2 nights' time, it will be the 2024 13th anniversary of my seeing the angel of death in my mother's eyes, and 2 hours later channeling the angel of death, who told me how to keep my mom alive.
Huh.
Now, my mom passed away last year after many health problems, but I think we got another 12 years out of her that we probably wouldn't have got. So I have channeled, but the one thing that I've noticed about channeling, whether it's what I've experienced or had others experience right in front of me, or even listening to Bashar, the communication always seems to be very vague.
Yes.
Like, we're supposed to know the answers, even though the answers coming out and the messages coming out are vague. What do you think about that?
For me, and let me just preface this first by saying that this is something that I've been able to do for many years. This is not something that I've been very forthcoming with up until literally this year. The reason being is that I now feel comfortable that I can talk about the fact that I hear strange voices in my head, and instead of being judged for that or called a liar, people are like, really? What are they saying? Like 2024 is wild. And the next 10 years that are coming are going to be even wilder for people like us that are able to do these things. But for me, when I channel, it's the weirdest thing. So I'll just sit here now and close my eyes, and I can just I open my mind and I'm like, is there anyone there or anything there that I need to hear? And normally when I channel, it's channeling for someone that I'm with. I never do it alone. So, we're sitting here now. So if I wanted to, I could ask a question, and words and images will appear in my head. Now, I'm still struggling with trying to understand if I'm channeling, right? Some being, some entity is giving me some information, or if I'm just sitting here and letting my inner voice ramble and just say some stuff, right? Because we all have that inner voice in our head. We're always talking to ourselves all day, Who's to say what the difference is? Why I think it's channeling, though, why I think it's channeling is because what it says to me, I repeat to the person. And when I repeat it to them, they're like, oh my God, that totally resonates. So either I'm just incredibly deeply intuitive and able to figure stuff out about people that I barely know just by looking at them, or something is passing through me, I don't know. I don't know how to tell the difference. And I feel with Daryl, it's a similar thing as well. I mean, he's something is passing through that man. That's for sure. But what? This thing that's passing through him says that it's an extraterrestrial, says it's from the Essassani race, says its name is Bashar, has described what its planet looks like, what it looks like, what its purpose is. It's a first contact specialist, bridging the gap between the extraterrestrial race and the humans. So whatever's passing through him is giving him this really solid story, and painting this picture of this beautiful utopian planet where these beings live, right? And it's also giving him a lot of knowledge that the average person doesn't have and doesn't know about our existence and about humanity. So I don't know. I find I'd love to ask you this question as well, Paul, but I find channeling really weird, and I don't think enough research has been done into it yet for us to define exactly what is going on. Paul, you just heard my explanation of how I channel, right? And me just rambling, or is it something else? What do you think?
Well, what I'm interested in, I think I'd like to prove that something is happening. I think what is happening is maybe even harder to prove than is something beyond our normal knowledge base happening. Like you said, it could be you're channeling somebody, or it could be your intuition, right? But it seems that you have given information to your friends that you really shouldn't have, that you shouldn't be able to know. So if we can dive into that more and set up some controlled circumstances and demonstrate that you've got information that you really shouldn't have, that is a first step in determining, okay, something is happening here. There is a channel, whether it's to some super deep intuition or somebody else. Then we can try to unravel that one as well.
That's kind of deep and profound there, my friend.
Well, these are the mysteries of the mind and the universe. I mean, you don't get much deeper than that, right?
Do you think then that aliens want to communicate with us, Serena? Do you think that they are trying to get messages through us? Because look, when we hear of these people who channel aliens, they're not government officials, they're not military officials, at least that we know of. Okay, they're stay-at-home moms, they're psychic intuitives, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're construction workers, Walmart greeters, whatever it may be, just ordinary people who seem to be getting this type of contact. Your thoughts?
Well, I guess no. I mean, I'm not going to mention the name of this person, but one of me and Paul's friends is an inventor and has extremely high IQ, and is probably one of the most intelligent people that Paul and I know. He's invented his own version of ChatGPT. He's an incredible scientist. Very wealthy, very successful, very good looking, doesn't need anything from anyone, and yet he has direct contact with extraterrestrial beings that he says have given him a lot of the knowledge and the information that he has, that have allowed him to create amazing technological machines and experiments and things like that. So, people that are having contact and are channeling or are, using telepathy to speak to ETs, like some of them are the smartest people that I know. It's definitely not limited to the moms and pops like people like to think that it is. Yeah.
No, I understand that. But what I guess the point that I was getting at was that, this happens to ordinary everyday people. It's not happening to people in government where they don't have their the government top psychic saying the aliens are coming on May 17th. 2039, and they're going to land at 5:42 p.m. In Paul Hynek's backyard. Right?
Well, we don't know what people in government know, right?
Exactly.
Because people in government don't tend to talk a lot about it.
And also, I know a couple of people in government that have had a lot of these experiences, but I guess it's just levels, when people feel comfortable enough to come forward and share their information. But to answer your question, as somebody that lives and breathes this topic, preparing for contact is the biggest sentence on everybody's lips right now, because we believe that contact with a species from another planet or interdimensionally or through the use of psychedelics is not only just already happening and happening to millions of people around the world every day, millions of people every single day, but it's increasing, the amount of sightings, the amount of telepathic contact, the amount of people that are leaning into plant medicines and experiencing journeys to other dimensions. The growth is just huge. And if you speak to people in this extraterrestrial world and ask why, they believe it's because contact is imminent. They believe that by 2030, meaningful contact will have been made with our planet. What that means is this. Yes, we're all having all of these interesting contact experiences now, from seeing lights in the sky to literally, having telepathic contact with beings. But It's going to shift and it's going to change. If enough people around the world believe and are not afraid and are welcoming to people from, well, beings from another planet, we believe that telepathically they will feel the shift in the energy of humanity and will feel comfortable enough to come to Earth and actually make themselves known to the entire race, the entire species. A lot of people say, well, why don't they just come? Why don't they land on the White House lawn? Well, guess what happens if anyone steps foot on the White House lawn? You get killed, or you get thrown into a lab and experimented on. We need to create a safe environment here on our planet so that when the extraterrestrials do decide to come, they're not going to be harmed, and their arrival will have meaning and add value instead of being a intergalactic war.
Yeah, we don't want any intergalactic wars happening. That just wouldn't be fun.
Right. So it's about a term we use in psychology is normalizing. So if somebody is freaking out about a certain situation, like, oh my God, what if I stand up in class today at school and people laugh at me? I'll just literally die. It'll be the worst thing in the world. But then as a psychologist, what you do is you normalize that situation and you say, well, comedians get up on stage every day and all they do is try and make people laugh at them. It's okay. It's normal to be laughed at. And I think the same thing is happening on our planet right now. Normalization. What is happening is all of us through movies and documentaries and podcasts like yours are starting to really integrate and normalize the fact that we're not alone. So when they do arrive, we don't freak out. We freak out for 5 seconds, but we're like, oh, it's real, instead of, and running for our bunkers. This is definitely a normalization period.
That's when I say every time I see Paul at a UFO conference.
Yeah.
He's real. Paul, the human side of all this is the fact that the majority of society really has no clue this is going on. They're blinded by their daytime job, their phones, their 2.1 children, their house if they can afford it these days. There's a lot more on their minds than worrying about aliens from outer space or extraterrestrial contact. Mm-hmm. The masses being, lack of a better term, ignorant or obtuse on this subject is quite real and still a large number for some reason. How do we get that message out to them that, there is contact being made?
Well, I've got good news for you, Mr. Scott. There was a recent Pew Research report done, and down here in the US of A, 51% of people believe in UFOs. So it is now the mainstream position. So for those few skeptics who remain behind, abandon your radical fringe belief and come bask in the sunshine of mainstream thought.
Come bask with us weirdos. It's more fun over here.
About contact, as my friend Andrew Gallimore talks about, if there is a civilization that's perhaps millions, if not billions of years beyond us, they are almost certainly post-biological, a future that we may well face as well. And if that's the case, they're not hopping in saucers. And as Serena said, landing on the White House lawn, they are, for all intents and purposes, invisible to us. And, divinely digital, let's say, so as to not squeeze out the divinity and not be a reductionist. And so when we think about contact, if they are not non-corporeal, somewhat digital entities, modalities like channeling become a lot more sensible, or perhaps we might have our first contact through a chat GPT interface. So our notions of contact with extraterrestrials are really rooted in the 1950s. And I think a super advanced race, if they deign to communicate with us, maybe in a way that we can't even imagine now.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Is there a message that you have for those 49% of non-believers to maybe say to them, hey, why don't you get on the woo train a little bit and come check out this story that we may not be alone in the universe?
Yeah, I'm not sure if woo train is going to get them to hop on, but I think we're pattern seeking mammals. And I've seen a lot of people who will say, yes, I know the New York Times basically said these things exist. And the US Navy has admitted they see things in the air, in the water, and they don't know what to do. So, but I don't know where they come from. And because they don't have an origin, a provenance for these stories, they just can't accept it. Because for a lot of us, it's an uncomfortable and awkward intellectual resting point to say, I believe in this, or I accept the data that suggests this phenomena is real, but I don't know where it's from, and I'm okay with that. A lot of people aren't like that. There are two kinds of people in the world, and this is a saying that is often attributed to Richard Feynman. One kind of person, where there are those who are okay with questions they cannot answer, and there are those who are not okay with their answers being questioned. So if you're in that later group, you're already predisposed to not really want to take on a new belief when you don't have a ready-made answer for it. And I think that's what keeps a lot of people from leaning more into the phenomena. It's not the importance or the significance, because it's one of the most important things you can imagine. And yeah, for a lot of people, they're occupied by more mundane, prosaic concerns. But I think there's a wide swath of people who say, yeah, there's a lot of evidence out there, but since I don't understand how they could get here, because they'll knee jerk to the extraterrestrial hypothesis, just because there's not an answer, it's just too much for them to take on.
It's funny, my partner, we've been together for a couple of years now, and it's been so unusual being with him because he has always been a non-believer, so not that he was like, there's definitely no aliens, but he was like, nah, I don't know, maybe, don't really care, and it seems crazy that I would be with someone like that, but I found it to be quite peaceful because my life is all extraterrestrial. So it was kind of cool to go home and but anyway, one day we went to Hawaii. We were in Big Island, Kona. I wanted one of the volcanoes that was actively erupting, and I wanted to see it. So we went over there, and it was so beautiful. And like, they've got some of the darkest skies in the whole world. Like, if you want to see the Milky Way, go there. It's so stunning. Anyway, and so we're out there, and we're lying on top of our car, staring at the stars. And I'm like, please, I know you don't believe, whatever. Please, can I just do a CE5? Let's just see. Who knows if something will happen. So he's like, okay, you're weird, but sure. So I did a CE5, where, the Google Earth thing where you're up here and you're zooming into Earth and zooming into where you are. Anyway, and then, and I'm like, and here we are. So I'm like, open your eyes. So he opens his eyes. We start looking up, and we're looking for maybe a minute. And then he's like, what was that? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, that. And I'm like, what? That. And there's this huge orb of light, and it moves down like this. And just hearing him have that childlike wonder and be like, that is not a star. Okay, that is not a satellite. And just freaking out organically. It was just the coolest thing in the world. So I think, why am I telling you this story? I think that what Paul is saying is so accurate, but I think it doesn't matter. A lot of people that believe are so, focused on making other people believe too, that don't believe. But I say there's no point doing that. They're going to have their own sightings. They're going to have their own weird telepathic moments. They're going to see their own shit in the sky, if not now, over the next 5 years, every one of us is going to experience extraterrestrial life. So, I say just let them be non-believers and really lean into enjoying seeing their childlike wonder and being able to say, I told you so. Told you there were aliens.
All about the aliens here, man.
Other of us are going to get to say I told you so. I can't wait.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that, and I think more and more people are picking up. I mean, even in my industry, seeing the amount of podcasts and YouTube channels that are dedicated to this, it is literally quintupled since I started 10 years ago.
Yep.
And some are doing very, very well in helping get that message out. Paul Hynek, Serena DC, we're through 1 hour here on Spaced Out Radio. We're going to continue the conversation to UFOs right after this. Everybody stay tuned. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, we are clear. Usually this time we turn it over to Dirty Phil. Serena, how you feeling?
I'm okay.
Did you want to bow out or did you want to keep going?
How much longer is it going to go for?
An hour?
I'll do one more and then I'll bow out.
Okay.
Is that all right? One
Thanks.
more.
Half hour?
Yeah.
One more segment. Yeah. All right, we're going to you guys can just hang out. We got about 5.5 minutes. We're going to turn it over to Dirty Filth here, who likes to go over his cartoons.
What is that?
Yes. Hold on a second here. There we go. Okay, so, excuse me. Apparently everybody's having difficulties with drones, which are apparently not helicopters or airplanes. I've invented a solution. So I attached a chainsaw to a drone. And all you got to do is drive your little drone up to the other drones. Instead of filming it, you just chainsaw the other drone into the ground, quite literally. Hit the rotors, it'll fall down. And then you just go and collect the leftovers and bring it in like a meteorite or whatever and collect the reward. There's probably a reward somewhere. But call now, supplies limited. Too much garbage in the way there. All right, anyway, I hope everybody's having a good night anyways.
So did the drone killer 8000 have like a spear and you upgraded to the chainsaw?
Yeah, we tried the spear, but it wasn't sharp enough, so we went with the chainsaw with the reciprocating blade.
Yeah, there you go. You need power tools.
Yeah, we've got another one in the works, but we'll see how this one works to go. In New Jersey, I mean, there's already a lot of sharp objects in New Jersey, so... I had actually drew a cartoon for a friend of mine. She lives there, and she was always really rowdy, so I always joked that she would give a little present box to somebody. When you open it, a little spring with a knife would come out and stab you.
Well, they have those little boxes where like the spider will come out, right?
Yeah, it's a quick innovation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and also, it's not for UFO use. So if you actually encounter UFO, your drone killer 9000 is probably... Settle down. The cats are out of control, you guys. I can tell you that much. But
speaking of New Jersey, I spoke at a MUFON conference in Pennsylvania a month and a half ago and learned all about the New Jersey Devil.
You know what? That's something that nobody ever seems to see, or they don't talk about a lot. Everybody talks about Mothman, but not the Jersey Devil.
Yeah. And these people, Philly's right next to Jersey, and they were all happy to talk about it.
Did you go for a Philly cheesesteak?
Well, I lived in Philly for a couple of years, so I got my fill of cheesesteaks.
Oh, a Langolier. What's a Langolier?
That's a Stephen King novel or short story. It was made into a movie.
Of the same name?
Yep. Yeah, I think it's like little things eating up reality, right? I think is that the one?
Interesting. Yeah, Bob Birkin's going to tell us about it. Yes, Paul, you are correct, says Bob Birkins. Oh, hey, Bob, check out these hands, boy. Drawn cartoons for you, buddy pal. I told Bob if I ever die before him, he gets to have my severed hands.
Those look unsevered.
Yeah, they're still on there. I got to pet the cats and feed them snacks after this. It's very important. They're just pacing around the studio here, and every once in a while they grab it onto the back of the chair, and I had to bolt the chair into place, otherwise it'd just pull me over and devour me. Look at that! Look at that beast right there.
Yep, this is my beast.
Is it a? I can't really see because it's just a little tiny picture. Is it a Russian blue you got there?
No, it's a tabby.
Oh, I'm looking through my. Oh, look at that! I got 4 cats. I have Whiskey, Blob, the Gremlin, and the Gargoyle. Thanks for letting me ramble again, Dave.
Oh, anytime, Dirty Phil. Thank you for the great art once again. Did you tell everybody where they can find your book?
You go to Amazon.com, type in Cryptid Cartoons by Filth Meidnar. It's the first, or Klaus Meidnar. They made me use my real name. What a rip. Anyways, have a good night, everybody.
See you, buddy. Dirty Filth, everybody. We love them around here. Hi, Zenzabil. How you doing? Mr. Cowley, Blue Pac-Man. Good to see you all. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe, ring that bell. We'd really appreciate the love and support because that's how we keep growing. That's how we keep growing. And I'm just seeing if I'm missing anybody else. Thank you to our super chatters tonight, Deborah Rooney, Joe, and Richard. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you very, very much. And don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. You can wear our stuff, including our brand new shirts. Friends Don't Let Friends UAP. Peter Ben, how you doing?
What if you have to get up in UAP in the night?
Well, that's different. Here we go. Here comes hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. What's it like to communicate with aliens? My name is Dave Scott. This is the nightly show that brings you the weird and strange each and every night. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Hamartiology. Hamartiology is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. We have Serena DC. We have Paul Hynek, a brand new movie coming out about communication with aliens. It's a study on Daryl Anka and his connection to an ET being called Bashar. Welcome back, everybody.
Thank you.
Communication with ETs. We always tend to think that they're little gray dudes running around because that's what's been in the media for years, and yet there's an enlightenment, Serena, that seems to really happen with this type of communication. And I'm just curious if you could break down what that enlightenment is all about.
That's a very deep question at this hour, Dave. I feel like, I talk about this a lot when I get interviewed, and it's about the dis-ease that us humans feel every day of our lives. I'm pretty happy. I've got 2 kids. One's just gone off to college. I've got a partner that I love. I live in a pretty house. My career's doing okay. I'm healthy. I have a good life. But I have moments every week without fail where I feel anxious, or where I feel scared, or where I feel sad, or where I feel as though something is missing from my life. That hole that we all feel. And I'm a big believer that the more that you experience extraterrestrial contact or contact with spirit, or you see things in the sky that are not from here, the closer you get to feeling less lonely and less sad and less scared and less anxious, because those feelings that we feel come about because there's some knowledge missing from our minds, and it drives us crazy. Like, you know, in our deepest consciousness and our deepest soul, we don't know where we come from. We don't know who we are. We don't know where we come from. We don't know what our purpose is. We don't know where we're going. And it drives us crazy. So when, for example, if we get to experience seeing a spirit or a ghost, and then we realize that there is something called an afterlife, and when we die, there is something more, it gives us comfort. And just a little bit of that loneliness and that fear and that anxiety that we have within us innately as humans dissipates. And then it's the same when you see those lights in the sky. Once again, you realize, oh, hold on, we're not alone. And not only that, but we might actually get to figure out where we came from. And maybe we're more important than just being ants crawling on this ball, because we're being visited by other beings. And just like that, a little bit more of that anxiety goes away, and that feeling of being lost goes away. And that's what I think is so incredible about believing and reaching out to the stars and seeing these things, because the more that you experience, the more whole you become as a person, and that anxiety and fear and depression starts to dissipate just a little.
With the experiencers that you have dealt with, Paul, over the years, have you noticed any patterns that they seem to have regarding their communication with an ET being or beings?
Well, they come in all shapes and forms, but one of the things I think is fairly common is that the actual sighting of a craft, or even an alien inside the craft, is often not the most traumatic or most important part of the overall experience. A lot of them will report that they feel they have communication before, during, and after a sighting, and they may be repeated sightings. Like Whitley Strieber is a great example of this, right? So this notion of communication being the most important part of the overall experience, and then it leaves them to wonder why were they picked, if not just some random occurrence. And that's something that, you know, to Serena's point about meaning and having sort of a more cosmic outlook is really important, because they will feel that they often have an important message to impart upon society. And that's part of the reason that my brother Joel and I want to help them, because if you feel you've got an important message to get across to society, if we can help you demonstrate the bona fides of whoever you're talking to, well, we can multiply the dissemination of that message. But, you know, these experiences come in all shapes and all forms. And the one thing it just comes down to is communication.
Why should we believe that communication, Paul, and not think it's just imagination?
Well, we shouldn't just believe it. We should hear what people say, and in my view, try to verify it. You know, it's like when I was on the board of a nonprofit and we were handed financials, and without proper time to review them, we would say, I accept, but don't approve these yet. So that's my stance with a lot of these reports. I accept what you're saying, and I don't pass judgment on it. And I would like to pass definitive judgment on it with something close to, you know, irrefutable proof.
What is irrefutable proof?
Well, you know, as we talked about before, if it's information like that Serena has, whether she's channeled it from the recesses of her own intuition or from another entity, if there's information that you really can't have, like some very difficult mathematical formula, or one of the, you know, for me, the gold standard is if you can provide the answer to one of the 7 unsolved math problems that the Millennium Institute has on their website, and for which they will give $1 million, that proves not necessarily that you're in league with an extraterrestrial or interdimensional, but it will prove that you or your intuition or someone you've talked to has knowledge that no other earthling has ever had. And that's a good starting point to then verify the provenance of that information.
Serena, is there irrefutable proof out there?
Well, I mean, if you've been tuning into any of these congressional hearings that they've been having, it appears as though maybe there is. One thing that I guess I've been leaning into recently, and we're about to embark on a new movie project, is looking at ancient structures, ancient mega structures. For example, the pyramids of Giza. There's many different theories on how they got there, who built them, why they're there. And all of these different theories have varying degrees of merit. But there's one thing that I can't get past, and that's the fact that if you go to the pyramids and you look at the hieroglyphics that are painted on the walls, you see extraterrestrials and you see extraterrestrial craft. And I don't know what would possess any group of human beings that were able to build a structure like that, so big, so magnificent, so impossible, to decorate it with weird pictures of aliens and spacecraft. You know what I'm saying? Like, if they did that, they did that for a reason. What was the reason? I believe to create a type of arc, perhaps. You see, as humans right now, we're moving into this technological age, an age where if you saw my handwriting right now, you'd think that I was a 2-year-old, because I write so little with my hands on paper that my handwriting is scroll. Everything that we do is online. Our photos don't get printed anymore. They live in our phones. All of our knowledge is on the computer. I have an Encyclopedia Britannica at my house, and people always laugh at me about it because they're like, why have you got this big, stupid encyclopedia in your house when you have the internet? I have it because when the internet goes down, I'll have all of the knowledge, right? And so what I really believe is that these ancient structures are the proof that we have, not that aliens are here right now, but that they've been here, that the other beings from other planets have been here and they visited us, and their visit was so profound that the people of that time carved it into the biggest, most grand structures that they had. Not one little shitty cave painting over in a corner. Huge megaliths depicting extraterrestrials and flying craft. So I think that's how we have our proof. What do you think, Paul? Do you think that these ancient megalithic structures that have these pictures on them are proof that we were visited?
Don't know.
But what do you think? What do you feel? What does your intuition tell you? Channel it.
Yeah, I need some channel help. My mom got angry with Mormons because in the Mormon view, they have to sort of disprove the sophistication of Native Americans. And I don't know. I'm not convinced that pyramids and other structures necessarily were built by aliens. People had a lot of time and a lot of manpower back then, and they were pretty smart. But there are a lot of very interesting drawings, either in caves or in hieroglyphics or in huge ones in land in Peru. And the ones in Peru are, the Nazca lines. They're somewhat confounding because you can't make it out what it is if you're on Earth, etching that into some kind of rock. And so you're left with how could people do that, and why would people do that? I don't know.
Yeah, those Nazca lines are pretty impressive. They really are. Seeing them is believing them, because it's interesting hearing Paul say that, because you hear it all the time. The Nazca lines, when you're on the ground, you really can't tell what they are, and you can only tell what they are from the sky. So I've been to Nazca, I've been to the Nazca lines, and it is so true. So you can, in Peru, it's crazy. You can actually walk up to some of these images, right? You can walk up to them. There's a couple of them that are on the side of the road, and it just looks like piles of rocks. It is just nothing. A big piece of land with a whole heap of rocks. Absolutely useless to the naked eye. They even have towers that they've built there, towers that are probably, I think, 7 or 8 stories high. And even when you're up 7 or 8 stories, you can kind of catch a glimpse of maybe what they are on an angle, but you really have to be in the sky to be able to see them. And then we have crop circles. Then we have Stonehenge. We have the amazing heads in Easter Island. Like there have been so many things that have been left behind to show us that something unusual was here before. That or everyone around the globe couldn't communicate with each other, and yet they were coming up with the same ideas for these strange looking creatures and craft. I don't know.
What about people who have a first-time encounter? Whether it's a close encounter with a UFO or an alien, they're not expecting it. They're not in this subject. And then all of a sudden, boom, their entire paradigm changes and shifts. What's the difference between them and, say, somebody like Daryl Anka who continually channels? Is it the power of the mind? Is it a starting point that most people go through, Paul?
Well, I think there's a bit of an ontological shock for someone who, especially if they're not steeped in this field already, not expecting it and not wanting it, and then all of a sudden see something and again may feel communication with an entity that can be traumatic. I think it's for a lot of them, it just takes a long time to get past the surreal nature that this impossible thing seemingly happened, and they question their own sanity. They may or may not confide in their loved ones and friends. I think a lot of stigma has been removed from 20, 30 years ago. And I think the movie Close Encounters helped with that, as it showed, every man who has a very fond relationship with mashed potatoes. And so a lot of people could relate because of that. But for people that aren't involved in this and then see something so overwhelmingly convincing, it's hard to think of something that would shake your worldview more than that.
Yeah. Now, you, Paul, for instance, do you consider yourself an experiencer?
Not in the classic extraterrestrial sense, no.
So for somebody like you who is looking pragmatically at this, how do you judge the emotion and the ontological shock, to use your term, that people go through when having something like this happen?
Well, I think Serena spoke to that, right? Pretty well about how she sort of discerns the legitimacy of a witness by how they display the emotion that they had at the time. People react in different ways, and it's also a function of how recent something was and if they've come to terms with it. I mentioned Kevin Day before, a friend of mine who was on the USS Princeton. He is still, bless his heart, to some degree traumatized by this event. He hasn't really come to terms with it because it was such a shock. I've seen people who are, felt like, okay, finally their vision of meaning has come true, and this is something they were waiting for. And other people who previously were diehard skeptics and now have gone the other way. And other people who've had some interesting experiences and just sort of put it in a drawer and don't want to think about it. I think, Serena, the psychologist, can sort of categorize how we deal with these types of things better than I can.
It very much is a traumatic expression. I mean, I even know, going through my own experiences, with, I've seen a couple of aliens face to face, and I'm not talking in dream state. I'm talking, one while I was doing this show and one in a forest. I've had 2 UFO encounters with landings, like they're on the ground. And the first one that I saw, absolutely, I didn't sleep barely for 5 days.
What did it look like?
It was the first one I saw on the ground was a giant, probably 20 to 30 foot blue cylinder. A gorgeous dark blue. The blue, to describe it, would be a little bit darker than the emergency lights of a police car. The emergency blue, a little bit darker. The funny part about it is I hadn't seen that blue until there was a video a couple years ago of an alleged UFO splashing into the ocean in Hawaii that was flying around one of the cities there, and then it dove into the ocean. That was the first time I'd seen that blue since. That happened a couple of years ago. And then it had this black cloud that was emanating from it from the bottom that was rotating counterclockwise around the cylinder. It would be at the bottom, and then it'd move about halfway up and then make its way down. And then there was the bright white lights that it was shooting through the trees, like lighting up all the trees around it. And that seemed to be coming from the bottom of it.
When you saw it,
yeah.
When you saw it, what was going through your mind? Were you still? Were you quiet? Were you just, rooted to the ground? And what were you doing? Like, how did you react?
It called me outside.
It
was completely telepathic that I had an anxiety attack, that I needed to go outside and see this thing. I didn't know what it was until I asked for it to show itself.
Right.
And then, and I'm talking to this thing, same volume that I'm talking to you, and about 150 yards away, it lit up like a Christmas tree on my command 3 times. And
did you ask why it was there? Why you? What was their purpose?
Good question. The questions that I asked were: you called me out. You called me outside, out of God's peace, life, love, and light. Can you please show me where you are? Boom! The lights went on, and then after 30 seconds, they turned off. And the journalist in me was like, okay, is this one of those 100,000 candle watt flashlights you could get at a hardware store? Is there any laughing? Is there any talking? Is there any music? Am I seeing any movement, like shadows in that white light? There was none of that. And then the lights went off. I said, if you're of alien descent out of God's peace, love, and light, can you turn your lights back on? Boom, the lights went back on. They were brighter. That's when I saw the cylinder. And because I moved to my right, the cylinder was being blocked by a tree. And when I moved to my right about 20, 30 feet, that's where I had a great view of the cylinder. And then after that, the lights went off. And I said, just so I know I'm not crazy, out of God's peace, love, and lights, can you turn your lights on one final time? And that's when it turned its lights on. But the interesting part about that third one was at the end, when it turned its lights off the first time, it then turned them on and off again about 9-10 times before going dark. There was no sound, no nothing. And what made me think of that was that when at my home that I lived in at that time, we'd get a lot of these power-ups right above my house. Like all of a sudden you think, okay, there's a satellite flying over, and then all of a sudden right above our house, poof, it would go into that big bright white light, and then it would die down and take off. And I always thought those were just satellites, maybe the sun reflecting or whatever. But after that experience where it turned its lights on and off, I think that was them saying, that's not satellites, dude, that's us.
So just for the audience watching this, the reason I asked the questions that I asked is because I was trying to work out whether or not Dave was telling the truth. I think Dave is telling the truth. Let me explain why. I think he's telling the truth.
Explain that when we get back from our break.
Okay.
Okay, not during the break. Explain that when we get back from the
That's
break.
what you call a cliffhanger.
That's that right. It's building suspense here on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. We'll be back.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, we're clear. 5 days. We'll finish that up. But 5 days after.
That's pretty adroit, Dave. That's how you got her to stick around for the next segment.
I've got to give the cliffhanger now, don't I?
Yeah. 5 days after that incident, I went back to the farm where this happened, and I met the best kept secret in ufology there. Her name is Samantha Mowat, and she's a lifelong ET contactee. And I was telling her the story. It was 2:00 in the afternoon. I was telling her the story, and she goes, "You want to go outside, don't you?" And I'm like, "Yep." She goes, "Do you mind if I come with?" So I said, "Sure." We walk into the back field, and I was showing her where the craft was sitting, and she was literally picking up on the energy of that. And we decided we were going to go in the back forest. And she came up to me and she goes, "Dave, do you want to go in the forest?" I'm like, "Sure." She goes, "You know we're probably going to see something, right?" I said, "Yep, I know." And she goes, she looks around and there's 4 dogs with us, my 2 dogs and the farm's 2 dogs. She goes, "But from what I know, ETs don't like dogs, so I'm not sure if we're going to see anything." So we decide to try to shoo the dogs back to the house. They're wanting nothing of that. We figure, screw it, let's just see what happens. We go to the fence where the forest begins, or where the farm ends and the forest begins, and all 4 dogs run through the gate of the fence. We walk in about 50 yards, and Samantha gets this perplexed look on her face. She's looking around, and she says, I said, "What's the matter?" She goes, "Dave, where's the dogs?" All 4 dogs disappeared.
Whoa.
Yeah. So like stupid white people in a horror movie, we kept going. And we walk about another 50 yards into the forest, and Samantha is very small and pixie. So she jumps up on this tree stump, and she has that look on her face again. Remember, this is 2:00 in the afternoon, April 15th, 2014. And she goes, "Dave," and I'm about 18 inches from her face. She goes, "Dave, I don't want you to be afraid, but I want you to look back." And she points north. And she goes, "I want you to tell me what you see." So I turned, took a deep breath, and for the next 3 minutes, all I could say is, "Samantha, what the fuck is that?" Because 200 feet in front of us, I'm staring at a 10 to 12 foot extraterrestrial.
Wow.
Yeah. So
what style?
I didn't see the arms or the legs. I saw the body and the head.
In the head. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was very thin, like beanpole thin. It was
being called the willowy ones.
It was very light. It was light tan in color, like if you put too much cream in your coffee. It was that color, but then after the minutes passed, it started getting darker. I didn't see the second being there. Samantha started telepathically communicating with the second being who invited us over. And I begged her not to leave me. And she started walking down the path. Said, "Let's go." And I'm like, "No, I'm not doing that. I saw fire in the sky." And I literally said to her,
That's funny.
I said to her point blank, Paul, your brother Joel is tuned in right now. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I did not.
He's in there. He's in our chat room right now. Has Paul Hynek had a UFO encounter? But I begged her to stay with me because I wasn't scared of the being. I was scared at that moment of how much my life had changed. Because in my 40 years, almost 41 years, I believe in heaven, I believe in hell, I believe in God, the devil, but nobody ever taught me what to do when you're staring at an extraterrestrial. That kind of throws the rule books right out the window. Right? So that was my indoctrination to it all. And then the funny part about it is Samantha never remembered this part of the conversation. When we came out of the forest after that, all 4 dogs met us at the gate, which was kind of weird. And then she says to me, she goes, have you ever been abducted? I said, no. She goes, well, it's probably going to happen now. And 5 months later, I was taken for the first time.
Wow.
So we're coming back in like 7 seconds. Thanks, Deb times 2, Richard times 2, Kira and Joe for the super chats. Here we go. Second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Great to have you with us as we talk UFOs, alien contact, and everything in between with Paul Hynek and Serena DC. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. We bring back our guest, Serena DC, Paul Hynek. Serena, you were about to ask me some pretty in-depth questions about my UFO encounter 10 years ago. What did you want?
Well,
no.
You told us your story before the break. And you exhibited a lot of the signs that I see in the abductees that I believe. So things that I think are important to look out for when you're interviewing somebody or talking to somebody about this kind of stuff is the way that they explain things. So one thing that Dave did was he was very, there were a lot of details to the story, he kind of spoke very slowly and pensively. Like you could see that he was thinking and recalling the memory and seeing the memory in his mind's eye and then articulating to you the parts of that memory that he thought were important and relevant. When somebody's lying, they've constructed a narrative and they're just going to be able to tell you that story flawlessly. They're not sitting there pondering on things or questioning things or trying to go deeper into their memory. They're basically just regurgitating a story to you. But that isn't something that Dave does. If you really think about it, and you guys can rewind this podcast to I guess, rewatch the way he told his story, but he told us a lot of mundane details, a lot of mundane, boring details that you wouldn't bother telling someone if you were going to try and tell a grand and exciting tale about seeing a UFO. He also constructed the narrative in a way that made you visualize it. I guess I can't see the chat. You can see the chat, Dave. But if people want to communicate with Dave, could you guys visualize it? Like when he was explaining how he was standing inside his house and he was having this, I guess, strange feeling to go outside, and then he walked outside on the grass. Could you see it? Could you feel it? Because I could. And I always find that that's how you can tell when someone is recalling a memory rather than crafting and constructing a story. So, I would say that was a pretty convincing tale that you just spun there, Dave. I would lean into thinking that it was real. Have you shared with your audience your abduction experience before?
Oh, yeah.
You have? I have never heard it before. Paul, I'm not sure if you have, but would you?
Which one do you want to hear? I have recall on about 9 of them.
I feel like Okay, was there an experience that you've had that actually allowed you to derive meaning from it? Meaning, you didn't just go up there and it was really freaky and you don't know what happened. Was there an experience you've had where you came back and you're like, wow, okay, I understand now. I understand why they're taking me now.
The last one was the weirdest, and that happened in February of this year.
Okay.
And when I get taken, I go into a dream state. So I usually go to bed about 1 o'clock in the morning Pacific time every night. And I went to bed like I normally do, fall asleep, roll over on my side and go to bed. And then I started having this dream. And so it was in a dark alley. My father was there. This is where it gets cool. My father was there, my cousin was there, and my best friend growing up was there. And we were talking about something, can't remember the conversation. And I said to my dad that before we go, I need to just grab my cell phone. And there was this stairwell there, and I guess I had put my cell phone on the stairs, but I didn't have my iPhone. I had one of these old indestructible Nokia 1994 phones that you could roll over with a semi truck, and it'll still be in perfect tact and useful. And so as soon as I picked up the phone, felt that gravitational pull, and it's like, oh God, here we go. I told you I don't want to go. Told you I don't want to go. And well, I guess I'm going. Then all of a sudden, I wake up in my bed. I'm still lying on my side. Now my back is facing my window. And my eyes open, and I could feel them, whoever they are, right behind me. And so I ended up thinking to myself, don't turn over. They're right there. Don't turn over. And then I started getting mad at myself because I'm like, this is what you do for a living. This is what it is all about. Turn over. So sheepishly, I start to turn over on my right side, and outside my window, I see this giant flash of light go blap, and the feeling of those beings is gone. So I laid there for about a second or two. I'm like, they're gone. You're safe. Never saw the beings. And so now I got to go to the bathroom. I crawl out of bed. My feet hit hit the floor, pardon me. And immediately I am freezing cold. Freezing cold. Like I am shivering, freezing cold. I run to the bathroom and take a pee, step away from the bathroom, go to wash my hands, and my teeth are chattering. I am freezing. I've got pajamas on, and I am so cold. So I said, screw this, hopping in the shower to warm up, and I go back to bed. After. Wake up in the morning, my chest on the left side is cold. Like I had an ice pack on it the entire night. And I start getting emotional because I think they operated on me. They did something to my chest, because what a lot of people didn't know at that point was I was actually having troubles with my blood pressure. And there were times where I felt like I was having a heart attack. And a couple of times I actually went into emergency to make sure that I wasn't, because I don't take the best care of myself. I've let myself go in the last 5-6 years. And so I started getting emotional that they did something, because my chest felt great. The first time in like a couple months, my chest felt great. And I get ready, do my thing, go to work, or get ready for work. And I remember that my dad was in there. So I call up my dad. And during that gravitational pull, where I was picking up my cell phone right before the gravitational pull, I dropped my cell phone and it went bang right before I got taken. So I call up my dad. I said, Dad, how'd you sleep last night? And he goes, "Oh, I woke up a couple of times, but, not too bad. Why?" I said, "Well, what time did you wake up?" Because my dad's a farm boy, 5 senses guy, doesn't believe in any of this crap. And I said, "What time did you wake up?" He goes, 7:15 this morning. And I said, "Okay, what time did you wake up last night?" And he goes, "It was just after 2 o'clock, like 2:05, somewhere on there." I said, 2:09? He goes, "Yeah, around there." I said, "Yeah, same here." So my incident had only happened like in the first hour and a bit after going to bed. I said, "What woke you up?" He goes, "I heard a bang on the floor, like something fell. It was really loud." And I started laughing, right? Because I had dropped the cell phone. And I said, "When you got up, what happened?" He goes, "I was cold, man." He goes, "I was cold. So I got up and I went and found another blanket. Well, when I got up, I was freezing cold." I said, "How do you feel this morning?" And he goes, "To be honest, son, I feel great." My dad is at the start of COPD after 60 years being a smoker for 60 years. Okay. And he's at the start of COPD. So when he wakes up in the morning, he's usually hacking and wheezing. Right. And he won't go on a CPAP machine. I'm trying to convince him to. But everything was so similar because when he woke up the morning, he had none of that, none of those symptoms. So they did something to him too. Now, my dad lives about a 4.5-hour drive southwest of me. And it was the first time I'd seen him on craft. It was kind of cool.
So you actually remember seeing him on a craft, and then you've both had like a similar physical manifestation.
I have no recollection of him being or of us being on a craft.
Right.
All I know is that when I feel that gravitational pull, I know I'm going. They don't show me the craft. I don't get to
wake up after.
I get to play around. I have snippets of little pieces of things that have happened.
Have you done hypnosis?
Yes. Yes.
And recovered a lot of memories.
Roscoe did my hypnosis. And the funny part about it is in my hypnosis, apparently I've been on craft with Katy Perry. And I have Katy Perry. Yeah, that actually came out in my regression. Yeah. So somewhere in this world she knows who I am, but it's not on this world.
You probably have a hybrid love child together or something like that.
I hope so. I hope so. That's bragging rights for me. Because trust me, on this end, it's not pretty over here.
You said something interesting, Paul. I'm sure you picked up on this as well. Like you do this for a living, as do I, as does Paul to a certain degree. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you have love for our star brothers and sisters, and you're intrigued about them, and you're happy that they're visiting, and you think that the world will be a better place if there's some form of communion between these two species or many species. But you use the word fear a couple of times. You used the word fear, and you also described how you knew they were there, and you do this for a living, but you don't want to turn around. That's something that resonates deep within me as well. One thing I've been told by many people I've spoken to, mystics and shamans, and even on plant medicine journeys, I've been told that once you let go of that fear, they'll allow you to remember. Right. And the reason that the memories are suppressed for us is because they don't want us to be in pain and to experience trauma in our waking life, because, that's torture. Right. And the closer you come to, I guess, accepting them and integrating them into your life, the more that those memories will start to appear for you. Have you ever done any kind of plant-based psychedelic kind of work before? Or ayahuasca or DMT or like mushrooms. Have you ever done any of that sort of stuff?
No.
You wouldn't?
No. When they opened me up back in my ride started in 2011, coming up 2 days from now. I was according to my guru, a gentleman named Pascal, they fast-tracked me. Like, I can tell you right now, I don't know how to astral travel, but I can do it. I don't know how to be intuitive, but I know that I am. And if I'm around other intuitives, I'm like a lightning rod. You know, and all of this stuff, like I've seen pretty much everything I've wanted to see in life on the weird and strange, you know, and I know that if it's out there that I can do it. All I need to do is have the time to concentrate on it.
Yeah, to tap in.
Yeah, once I'm tapped in, it's like, let's go, let's rock and roll. It's very interesting on how it, you know, you perceive it. And you know, a lot of people will sit there and say, and it's not just me, but it's a lot of skeptics out there, they'll say, you know, that we're our biggest critics. Like, we're our biggest skeptics. Like, when I have a situation happen, I'm not all of a sudden saying, oh, that's a ghost, that's an alien. I'm trying to break it down. Is that what I am seeing? What am I seeing? I'm taking a mental picture of it, and I am trying to break it down into something that's, lack of a better term, realistic. You know, and the fortunate part about my experiences, for the majority of them, outside of my abductions, is that I've had eyewitnesses to it. Like when we had the UFO and alien encounter last year in the forest, I was the only one who saw the craft, and I was the only one who did, out of 7 people, who did not see the alien being walking through the trees. And it was a tall gray. I saw the craft, though.
Paul, what do you say when you hear these stories? You know, because you're a man that wants to believe, and you've seen certain things, but you haven't seen an alien and you haven't seen a UFO. Like, what do you feel? Like, you know, the way Dave talks about this, he speaks so freely and so matter of fact. This is what he's seen. So when you hear stories like this, you know, are you sitting here believing them? Are you analyzing them? Are you calling bullshit on them? What is your point of view?
No, again, it's I accept, you know, I acknowledge what he's saying, and I try to pattern match it with other stories I've heard. And I also, like you, will look at clues to sort of describe how legitimate it is. And I talk to a lot of people about stories that are reports they have over the years, and see if it's consistent over the years. And Dave, I got to tell you, you had me spellbound at one point, because how can you own the night if you don't turn over?
I know.
So
there is just this compromising fear that I have about, okay, let's go back to 10 years ago when I had the encounter with Samantha Mowat in the forest. The beings were afraid that I was going to have a heart attack and die if I walked over there.
From shock, you mean?
From shock.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they didn't want to ruin my day.
yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. And so there is this keen sense of I think I'm going to call it healthy respect that I have. Like, as you know, this is where I laugh at people who say, oh, if I saw an alien, I'd go up to it, I'd take a picture of it, I'd grab my phone, take a picture of it, acting all tough and brave, as most internet people do, until you're put in that situation. And that fear factor that kind of runs through you, it's very uncomfortable.
It is.
And I can honestly say that I'm not brave enough. But I also don't like being taken at night, because I'm somebody who needs, for my own anxiety, I need control. And if I'm out of control, that's where where I start to get, I don't want to say a panic attack, but I start to not feel very safe. Like, so I put it out to the universe on a daily basis. Land your craft in the backyard. I live in the middle of nowhere. Nobody's going to see you. My neighbors are never home, and my other neighbors go to bed really early. Nobody's going to see you. I got a half an acre in my backyard. Drop your craft right there. Drop the gangplank so I can walk on. Let's go for a flight. That's what I've been putting out there for.
Just make sure it's in the daytime.
I want to fly the craft, damn it. That's what I want to do. I want to fly the craft. You know? And I don't know if I'll ever get that opportunity. Maybe I have, and I just have no recall on it. I don't know. But I want recall. I want to see it. I want to play, I guess in the romantic way I have in my brain, I want to be James Earl Jones in Field of Dreams, where he's, looking at the cornfield and kind of inspecting it before he just takes the plunge and walks in. Because I think and I hope that I would have the courage that if that situation were to occur, that I would have the courage to walk up that plank and into that craft. I've had aliens in my backyard. I've heard them talking. It's like right out of the movie Signs. That was kind of trippy.
Yeah.
But I want the craft there. That's what I want.
I think humans will surprise themselves. I think as another human comes face to face with an extraterrestrial over and over again every day, as it becomes more prevalent, we'll start hearing the stories, which will read something like this. Oh my God, I saw it and I froze, and I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, I'm opposite an extraterrestrial right now. But then after a few seconds, I started to realize, okay, this doesn't feel malevolent. This doesn't feel like it's going to try and harm me. This isn't baring its ugly teeth and coming at me in this aggressive form. If anything, it's talking to me inside my mind, and it's saying, I know this is a lot. Be calm. Feel calm. And I'm telling you, humans adapt really quickly. I don't know if you guys have ever watched a documentary about the deep ocean, when you see all of those incredible fish and species that are like fluorescent and they're so foreign and so alien to us, but we don't sit there going, oh my God, they're gonna kill me. We don't freak out. We're like, wow. And we look at them with wonder and curiosity. And I think that the same thing will happen when we meet these extraterrestrials as well. Initially they'll be like, oh my God, is it gonna kill me? But then when it doesn't, we will accept, we will integrate quickly. And what will follow will be the curiosity and the welcoming nature that all of us have inside us. It's like when you see a dog, when you first see a big dog, go around to someone's house, they open the door, there it is. The first thing you think is, holy shit, is this animal going to eat me now? Like, am I doomed? But then it comes up and starts licking your knee and nuzzling into you and wanting a pat, and all of a sudden all those fears you had dissipate, right? I really believe it'll be the same for all of us when we come face to face with these beings, unless they're evil. Then we'll better run.
Love it. We have just over 1 minute left tonight with both of you, and I just want to say a big thank you for coming on the show, Serena and Paul. Paul, your hair looks absolutely fantastic. Just want to give you that compliment. I mean, I don't know where you buy a toupee like that, but I want one.
Hey, I showered just for you.
Me too. Me too, to be blunt. And Serena, do us all a favor. Tell everybody the movie and where they can find it.
Yes. So the movie's called Interview with the Extraterrestrial, and it's currently number 2 in the Apple iTunes store, or whatever you call it, the Apple store, which is such an amazing feat for all of us guys, because Apple is a mainstream platform and we're number 2. And we've actually been in the top 10 for the last 8 weeks. So it's like super exciting. But you can also get it on Amazon and Google Play and YouTube, Premium and on my AVOD, which is at sparktv.co. And at the moment, we're also crowdfunding our next movie, which is called The Embassy, which is actually focusing on one group's plan to try and build an extraterrestrial embassy here on Earth and getting Congress to approve that. So if you wanted to be part of that movie and the crowdfunding, you can go to crowdfunder/embassy.
Love it. Coming up next on Spaced Out Radio, Swamp Dweller, then a UFO report with Tim James. Hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio is
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Dave. You are awesome.
I try.
Thanks, Paul, for coming and doing
Big shoes to
that.
fill when Paul is on the show.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you left early. You and Michael and Moni left early on Saturday.
I know. I can't believe I missed out again.
At
I don't know.
least
I
you-
thought the vibe was weird. It was just like everyone seemed pretty chilled out. I thought everyone was super stoned, so I was just like, I'm going to bounce.
All right,
And then you
guys.
all went into the balls. Thank you so much, Dave. Hey, and Dave, hit me up. Let's have a chat about this area that you're talking about. I'd love to know more.
It'll blow your fucking mind.
You can talk to me about whatever area you like, Paul. All right, guys.
Take care. Paul Hynek, one of my favorite people. Literally is. Love the guy. Serena's pretty cool, too. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Little Timmy James.
Was shaking.
Not much, buddy. How are you?
Oh.
Hi. All right. We got 1 minute. Everything was going well until she dropped a bullshit and a shit right in the last 7 minutes of the show.
I see that.
Nice
See
shirt,
that?
eh? It's nice that you stole that from me.
Yeah, it was. You weren't looking.
Swamp Dweller is 3.5 minutes.
Cool. I just shut it down. My computer went into complete overload. I was like,
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I don't like it when you're not in studio. I'm just going to
Yeah,
tell
I
you.
hear you. I know. I'll be there
I know.
Wednesday.
Yeah. I know. 10 seconds, everybody. And here we go. Here we go with the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for chasing our stories of the weird and strange with us each and every night. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam is set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Hamartiology. Hamartiology is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. It is that time of the night where we head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. Hi there. This is my first time submitting a story on a podcast, so I hope I've articulated it well enough. For reference, I'm a college student living in London. Classes end at around 1600 for the most time. In winter, the sun sets around 1500. As you'll see, this will play a vital role later on. Usually, I take the bus with my friends and enjoy our laughs and conversations until we go our separate ways. For context, I have approximately 25-minute walk after I get off the bus to my house. The street I get off at is very loud, filled with restaurants and shops. It's not some dark, empty, and desolate street by any means. However, I usually take a shortcut on a street veering right off this commercial street to get home. Immediately, this street will give you seedy vibes. The juxtaposition from the radiance of the main street to this one is absolutely undeniable. If you listen to music with your headphones, this street would immediately urge you to remove them. It goes for around 300 meters or so. It's slim, the apartments are on one side and a brick wall on the other. The worst thing is undoubtedly the silence. On rare occasion, once a month or so, I'll see one person walk through the street. Only the faint, far sound from the distant sirens can be heard when you pass through it. Finally, it could be better lit, to be honest. There's very few street lights, and it's very dark. As usual, I took off my earphones this particular day when I started walking through this area, just to be extra precautious. Occasionally, I turn around, checking my back. Get that feeling. I know it's cliche, but that particular day, I just had a sensation. Something inside me told me to be extra careful. I forgot to mention a short part during the halfway point in this walk, somewhere about 30 meters long of complete pitch darkness. Here, the houses and walls are replaced by empty roads with no ending. Every time I walk through that short section, I take it upon myself to speed walk until I reach the light. As I neared the dark interval this day, I heard a very faint, yet undeniable rustling. Strange. I thought. London isn't an exceptionally safe city, so I considered that some mugging might be involved. Yet, I was in for something much worse. I stopped for a second, listening to my surroundings very intently. Hey, maybe it was a fox. Maybe it was a cat. Who knows? I waited, but I heard nothing. I continued my stride and sped up as I entered the complete darkness. At the same time, two things happened. First, a ruffling sound, only louder. Secondly, I saw something off to my right in the darkness. It was a horrifying figure, a worn, white, and pale face contrasting in the darkness. When I heard stories like these on podcasts, I only dismissed them as people exaggerating or lying for attention. But for just a split second there, I felt genuine fear for the first time in my life. Its eyes were glossy and black. Its body was thin and white. It made a sound that sounded almost like a pig mixed with a human cry. I ran. Every few seconds I would turn back and look behind me. That thing never came out of that pit of darkness. I only saw its disgusting face staring at me. I didn't care. I made my way home in record time that day. I haven't seen that thing since. I don't know what I saw. I can't recall anything else from the creature. I don't know much about cryptids, but I'd appreciate some insight if anyone has any idea what it could have been. I still need to take that shortcut on my way home to get to college and stuff, but I don't know if I want to.
Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another interesting report. If you want more just like that, head on over to his YouTube channel, Swamp Dweller, and literally you can have thousands of choices to listen to each and every night. From the swamp to the stars, here comes Tim James to the UFO report.
That is an interplanetary flying space saucer. You have made me very angry. Very angry indeed.
Little Timmy James, I got to tell you, man, I'm getting tired of drones. Real tired of drones. You know, I saw one video today on X where somebody from the public had filmed this claimed drone, and they were like, look at the size of it, look at the lights, it's so weird, this is definitely not human, this is definitely so many different options, and if you turn the sound up, it's a helicopter. But this is what we're going through, is there's a lot of how can I put this? I don't want to use the word copycat, but a lot of clickbait videos out there that are happening right now. Have you noticed that?
100%. What I've done too is obviously doing research for the show and trying to, find some interesting stories. And it is all about drones right now. It's just a plethora of drones. But what I'm doing is I'm totally ignoring the photos and the grabias. I'm just reading. I'm going to people that I normally check out that are, usually vet their information and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm trying to stay away from it. And then, lunchtime I'm scrolling through and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, right? It's like some of these things are so blatantly obvious, and then some of them are just so, I guess, bogus. So yeah, it's almost, well, it's not almost, it is, it's overwhelming at times. It's just too much.
The thing that I am seeing now is you're getting all of these politicians, from mayors in New Jersey to Congress people and senators, claiming we don't know what this is. We don't know what's going on here. We need some answers. They're going into military protected areas and all this, so on and so forth. Like, why are we wasting our time talking about this when they already know? There is nobody out there who could convince me otherwise, that they don't know what these drones are or where they're coming from.
For sure. I've had similar thoughts, like obviously reading through reports and stuff, and constantly that was one of the questions I had in my head too, is like you're saying, different political figures are doing that. And it's like the first thing that comes to my head as I'm reading it, and I'm like, no, come on. Like, you guys know what's going on. I don't understand why you're pretending not to know. And the other side of that is you're terrifying the public, the people that are, well, not, I shouldn't say everybody, but there's a lot of people out there that are, pretty petrified about what's going on. And by them pretending that they don't know what's going on, they're just fostering the terror in these poor people and these citizens, right? Spill your guts, let it out, let people know, and put some minds at ease before everything just goes completely chaotic and everybody starts going off all willy-nilly. I don't understand that either, Dave.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-mm.
I mean, let's go through what we already know. Okay. I think that is something that we need to cover for our audience.
Sure.
We already know that there has been companies in that area that deal with drones that have been doing nighttime tests because they need to in order to test out what their drones look like. We know that.
Yeah.
And they fly multiple drones at once. That's part of it. Number two, we know that people aren't very good at detecting helicopters, airplanes, and jets.
Yeah.
Okay. When you see red and green on the wings, along with a strobe light, which detects the aircraft to show where the aircraft is, to catch attention, we know that's human.
Mm-hmm.
We know that. We also know that if it was any adversary, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, they're not going to put lights on their drones because they're not going to want to have the military or the government know that it is them.
Right.
That's just obvious. Absolutely obvious. If I were a part of a country or an organization, a terrorist organization that was looking to infiltrate a military base, I'm having my tech guy put a night vision camera on that drone so that way I could see where it's flying.
Yeah.
What I'm looking at, and I'm going to black out all the lights or unplug all the lights on it.
Makes sense.
That would just make sense.
Of course.
And yet we're not thinking logically, publicly about this, and mass hysteria is starting to build.
Yep.
I shouldn't say mass hysteria. I'll downgrade it to hysteria is
Yeah.
starting to build.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And the other thing, like even what point of what you're saying is, okay, flashing lights and all that stuff, and then if they are nefarious and it's a Russian drone or what have you. My question, and just for anybody out there, my thought process is, why would Russia, if this is the case, or the train of thought, why would they be sending something nefarious all the way over to the east coast of the United States if they've got that technology and it's so, this is so, I can't think of the word, but if it's so spectacular and it's so got the whole United States and Canada and basically most of the world all wound up about it, don't you think that they would have used that in the Ukraine already? I'm just throwing it out there. That's my process, right? If they're that technologically advanced, why would they be flying them over air bases in New Jersey and Staten Island and the Eastern Seaboard? They take care of business of what they're doing right now, and I would suspect that they'd use it against the people that they're invading, the Ukraine, right? Just it's not logical thinking. And that's the way I kind of processed it. I was like, no, I don't think so. I don't think that this is Russian. And Jeremy Corbell weighed in on it today. And, he's got friends of friends and insiders. So I'm just going to read this out to you. So his response to these drones. So the drone situation, this is all quoted from him. The drone situation, I'm not sure either, but here's what I'm confident in. I've taken my time and engaged in substantive conversations with a handful of trusted individuals who are directly involved with responding to the events unfolding in our skies at various levels, both nationally and internationally. Some of the individuals I've spoken with have captured observed, or been part of the analysis team processing the FLIR data and imagery of the units penetrating the airspace enveloping our sensitive U.S. installations. My focus has been local bases. These individuals include government contractors with significant threat identification responsibilities, personnel working directly with sensitive U.S. infrastructure facilities in analysis roles, and others holding strategic defense roles specifically. They are all, in all caps, independent contractors, not part of the UFO world and not cross-communicating. I have known all, in all caps, of these individuals for a significant amount of time, and they have earned my trust. Each individually holds positions that provide access to non-public information related to these recent incursion events, and most in real time. What I can report definitively is that some of the morphology of the units recorded is inconsistent with any conventional hardware or traditionally propelled aerial vehicles that we are currently aware of. Some are definitively consistent with known designs, but are of unknown origin, unknown to those reporting to me. The general consensus is that the United States has an exquisite capability to trace and track the origins of any UAS, entering and exiting protected restricted airspace. It is my personal observation that this has led to collective confusion and extra departmental glances seeking direction from local to federal and vice versa, and that this aspect of the unfolding situation is both fascinating and revealing. There is also a clear and shared sense that much of this activity is being allowed to happen with ambiguity actively encouraged. This leaves me with more questions than answers, as I am sure it does for you too, which seems reasonable and likely intentional, given what we know about the structure and capabilities of the American defense system. Just reporting the news as I trust it at this time and as I've learned it. So he's even going, he alludes to the fact that it's known. It just reinforces where you and I are coming from, and a lot of people that we've discussed it. It's not. I don't think it's like we say. It's not nefarious, but it's known, and probably government testing and all that sort of fun stuff.
Well, and that's what we need to be able to figure out. For people who are wanting to know where the spies are located, there's two places in the United States that has the most spies.
Mm-hmm.
Number one is Washington, DC,
right,
which in reality, New Jersey is not that far from. Number two, on the West Coast, is Las Vegas.
Right.
Las Vegas has the highest concentration of foreign spies and U.S. spies all trying to figure out each other, because you could get away with anything in Vegas if you know the right places to go. Right.
True.
I think Jeremy Corbell is right on this.
Mm-hmm.
I do. But in listening to his statement that you just read,
mm-hmm.
I tend to think that Jeremy is kind of leaning towards UFOs rather than, the logic that this could be American technology that we are dealing with. I mean, we also have to learn that last week too, News Nation, Fox News both came out with reports that basically stated that the United States military was testing drones
mm-hmm.
in that area over their bases.
Yeah.
That says a lot. Okay. That says way too much to me to make me convinced that there's little gray dudes flying these craft. How do you feel?
I agree. I'm again, obviously believe in UFOs and have seen stuff, and like, there's no question about that. But in this case, this scenario, this situation, whichever way you want to look at it, I do not believe that this is UFO. There's just too much relaxing by the government. Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. By now, if this had been a significant threat, I think that, there would be fireworks over top of New Jersey, in the UK. I really do. And that's my opinion, and that's my thought process on it. I'm not buying that that they are anything from extraterrestrial, right? I think this is where UAP comes in. I don't think this is UFO. I think this is man-made or whatever, and company made. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying the UFO threat. And like I say, and the worst part of it all is that they just keep letting people speculate, and like I say, there's some people out there that just don't get it, right? And you're causing terror, right? They're terrorizing their own people, and they know it. And it to me, that doesn't make sense. As a Canadian, I do not get that. I don't get that at all.
Well, I mean, I think we also have to look at too that what's happening, like at Lake and Heath Airport in the UK, where that orb kind of came down and got close to the runway and everything. It was taken by airline pilots. I'm not sure about that one. That one doesn't look like, when you zoomed in on that, to me, it basically looked like a ball that was taped badly with duct tape.
You know what it reminded me of? It almost reminded me of a 3D version of the Geffen Records logo. The way that it so similar, like it looked like it was pieced together. And I mean, even with it enhanced, the way that they enhanced it, it was like almost like a duct tape soccer ball, I guess, for the way that I saw it. But if that was the case, that's a pretty weird looking drone. I have to admit, that would be something that I'd probably want to investigate a little bit further. But yeah, it just seemed to be there, and it pops up randomly in the feeds every once in a while. But that's kind of fallen by the wayside too. So I'm wondering if everybody's just enveloping it all as one situation, or are we missing something? Are we missing other things out there because of all of this baloney that's going on right now? That's a possibility as well, right? Right in front of our face, and everybody's worried about the things flying around up in the sky. And hey, oh, by the way, something else snuck in that nobody really paid any attention to and went, oh yeah, just chalked it up to another drone, right?
But we're used to that. That's we are used to that actually happening.
Yeah.
And like Senator Gillibrand here, so we got about a minute to go here. She stated today, repeated incidents involving unknown drones over American airspace must be addressed. That is why I am leading a charge to update Department of Defense's authorities to detect and stop these drones when they are over military facilities. Well, why haven't they? If these are a threat and we don't know whose they are, why haven't you taken them down yet?
I know.
You have millions of dollars worth of helicopters and defense radar and everything in order to take care of any alleged subsequent threat, yet you haven't done it yet. You would think that if you are having an invasion of whatever these things are, that it might be a priority to shoot one down. Now, there have been a couple of crashes that have happened, but I mean, these seem to fall by the wayside really, really quickly. Whether they have or not, we don't know. But one thing we do know is we are going to continue this great conversation with Tim James on the UFO Report here on Spaced Out Radio. Tim joins us 2 times a week. Keep us updated on the latest and greatest in the UFO world. We'll be right back with the final half.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
Just for our audience, I got to be up at 6:45 in the morning. Yeah. Yeah. I have an 8:00 meeting, and that I cannot be late for.
Oh.
Yeah.
Your turn. Your turn.
Yeah, my turn. So
Yep.
as soon as the show is done, I'm going to quickly get on out of here and go do my thing that I have to, which is edit the show, edit a couple of swear words out, and get to bed here as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So it's going to be a long
No
day.
chitty chatty after.
Not today, man.
No, I had to come home tonight. I went down to the grocery store and bought one of those pre-roasted chickens. I was like,
Oh.
and then set my alarm because I was just wasted this afternoon. Like up at 3 this morning, and I'm like, oh god.
Why were you up at 3?
I got up at 3 because I got to get up and I got to have my coffee. So I got up, had a cup of coffee, had a shower, had another half a cup of coffee, and then down because all the contractors were in early before the goat rodeo showed up. Armani suits with high vis vests.
Oh yeah.
I was like,
your lot is so big, you need those high vis vests in order to see it. Right. Shelby Zed, welcome to SOR chat. Yeah, I mean, literally, you're the size of a gas station.
Yeah, with 1, 2, 3, 780,000 liters of fuel on it. Yeah, I know, but they had to come in and see all the new stuff. Well, guess they want to look and see what they paid for.
No. I actually napped after work today.
See, I couldn't have done that. Normally I can. That would have screwed me.
It was about half an hour.
Oh, really? I can't do that.
Yeah. Thanks for those videos today, by the way.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah.
Lots of response. Bumblefoot liked it.
Oh, did he? Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Made a couple more for Robbie, and then made a couple more
sweets. Yeah.
For Element. So that was good. Going back and forth with them this afternoon. So
Element extra small.
Oh yeah.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, that was good.
That was very good.
Good show tonight, as much as I caught.
Yeah. Little Paulie Hynek, he's a good guy. I like him. Just checking out the chat room here. Brad Dwarf, there's no way I'm heading for the meeting now. I had such a shitty sleep last night as well.
Oh.
Like, I never get up in the middle of the night, and I got up twice. Like, literally, I'm lying in bed, and all of a sudden, I just open my eyes. I'm like, really? I'm awake again?
Oh, wasn't a nature calls incident? It was just a ding. Oh, damn.
Just a wake up. Sucked.
Yeah, no doubt.
Didn't like that. Wasn't happy about that. You know? All right. Big thank you to Deboruni ×4, Richard ×2, Kira, and Cosmic Joe for tonight's super chats. Very much appreciate the love and support. So thank you. Thank you very much. And we're going to come back in about 20 seconds.
Cool.
And 7 seconds. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Great to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Little Timmy James is here with the UFO report that will take you about the hour. Reminder to all of you that if you missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to YouTube or on any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here's Tim James, UFO report. The big bad drones are all around us. All around us.
Yeah. It's never ending, but this is a new twist. So I ran across this, and this was in the New York Post, Times Post, I think. So the headline read, "Mysterious drones are changing time on clocks in New Jersey as locals fear they're being targeted by UFOs." So as waves of loud, car-sized mystery drones continue to buzz over New Jersey, one family reported that the craft changed time on their car's clock. The family of Morris County locals said that they were following one of these seemingly terrestrial UFOs in their vehicle, only to experience the odd effect of their car's electronics as the unexplained craft hovered above them. The clock in the car changed time, according to one Fox News reporter who spoke to the unnamed family. They say the clock went back to normal after they drove off. While local law enforcement in Morris County has issued a statement asserting that there is no known threat to public safety at this time, surprise, the FAA has issued a ban on drone flights over sensitive areas in the state. Last Tuesday, the FBI described the sightings as only possible drones and a possible fixed-wing aircraft in its efforts to get to the bottom of the night flight. Right. But residents within the eight and counting New Jersey counties where the strange crafts have been sighted are also taking matters into their own hands, with over 17,000 trading notes on the sightings in a dedicated Facebook group, which surprisingly hasn't been closed down. One local software engineer who specializes in radio communications believes the temporary alteration of the car's clock is a clue to the origin of these mysterious drones. Many newer cars get their clock time from GPS satellites, since that's one of the most accurate time signals you're going to get in a vehicle, the engineer Richard Dajowski posted to his Facebook group. If these are using GPS jamming or spoofing, then it's plausible the car would follow the signal and change the clock to match whatever signal is coming from the drone/plane. So don't think aliens, the engineer continued. Think foreign actors using electronic warfare methods. He also noted that the GPS spoofing on board these mysterious aircraft would also explain the car's clocks returning to normal time once they are out of range. And then he quotes, "Once you're out of range of the spoofed GPS signal, the clock will acquire the real GPS signal with the correct time." While some locals are not buying it, with one saying, "We need to accept that these are not just drones, these are UFO," other experts did agree with Dajowski. A contractor with the FAA's Office of Communications, David Lombardo, co-signed the radar jamming or GPS spoofing theory, writing, "It's very likely that these drones have some sort of electronic interference capabilities. while Lombardo said he did not believe that the FBI wouldn't get involved if a bunch of drones were just pissing people off. The FAA contractor also confessed that he currently saw no evidence actual law breaking yet. Nothing that these drones have done appears to be criminal or really against any rules, so far as I know. I mean, they're being weird, but there's no crime in being weird. But retired Police Lieutenant Tim McMillan argued that the drones fit a pattern of Russian psychological warfare operations internationally. Lieutenant McMillan reported that both the mysterious drone flights over New Jersey mirror a 2022 incident in which drones flew over sensitive sites in Sweden, just as the European nation was considering joining NATO. This recent drone wave is likely in response to the West green-lighting Ukraine to use Army tactical missile systems inside Russia, stated the retired police investigator. So now they're changing radios. And yeah, like, makes sense that, I get it, the radio interference, but I don't know. It's like, what next?
They have the ability to take these down. Okay. And this is where we get into the threat narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Where were these drones or these UFOs prior to the hearings?
Exactly. In hangars, in boxes, in the basements of Army, yeah, exactly.
And look, the more and more this goes on, the more we're going to see people with their own personal drones making UFO videos.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm curious here. What does a YouTube video make with 1 million views? So if you have a video that hits 1 million views, you can expect to earn $3,000 to $5,000 from YouTube.
Yeah.
Never mind X, if you're monetized on X or Facebook or on TikTok. Okay.
That's nuts.
So you could make a minimum $3,000 to $5,000 off that video for 1 million views.
They would have to be very, very convincing. I mean, and not to step on your toes. I mean, I'm sure that this has been happening a lot already, right? But yeah, I guess, there's not trying to sound derogative, but there's a sucker born every minute too, right? That's what the old Ringling Brothers or Barnum and Bailey circus thing. You put it out there, somebody will buy it. Somebody will buy into it and spread it around. So yeah, that's some good coin for faking out a lot of people.
Well, Rob G puts it very nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure they could have satellites already tracking these drones home.
Sure. No, that's a good point. And why wouldn't they? Right? It's just, there's so many. You try not to sound. I'm not trying not to sound like a know-it-all, because by no means am I any sort of a know-it-all on this subject. But coming from a person that's not as experienced as Science Bob, you guys, there's a crew out there. I'm just like, I'm not even buying this, right? So I don't know. It's got to come to a head somewhere. And like I think I talked about last week, they're going to back themselves into a corner so far, or somebody like Jim and John and Joe are going to all be in the backyard one night and go, let's take one of these things out of the sky, right? And it's going to happen. People are going to get tired. They're going to take it into their own, doing their own will, and take one of these suckers down and go, look, I got one. And then what? Right?
I'm surprised that hasn't happened yet.
Right? And I'm not saying that you should do that, people. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm not suggesting it.
We're not
But
condoning that whatsoever.
no. But yeah, I'm really surprised. That's like, bruh, I don't know. That would have crossed my mind a few times if these things were flying over my house. I'd be like, all right, pointy stick.
Yeah, I mean that's what the pointy stick is for. You know, I mean, they can't be that hard to shoot down. Okay,
No.
like let's say in our area where there's a less population, we were having these drone swarms.
Mm-hmm.
It would be very easy to take one down.
No question.
If you have a scope that you could zoom in on this thing,
Mm-hmm.
and a rifle that could take it down in one shot,
Oh,
because
yeah.
if it's hovering there, or even if it's moving slow,
Yeah. You would suspect it'd be fairly easy, especially, if you're experienced and you're a good shot. These things
yeah,
are
now, I'm not telling the public because I'll be honest with you, I'm a terrible shot. I personally would not try that. I am a terrible shot, right?
you're not that bad.
But then again, I've only been literally shooting for about a year.
Still.
No,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah, no, you're a decent shot, but yeah, it doesn't. So much of this, and I hate sounding like a broken record, does not make sense. It does, but the other side of the coin is the big secret, like we're fooling them. Don't tell anybody. Is like you're not fooling anybody. Just spit it out, right?
I don't know.
I don't
What
know.
else? What else do you got for us?
I have something that doesn't have anything to do with drones right now. So this is this week in UFO history. So this week in December of 1954, on the evening of, or on an evening in December of 1954, farmer Olimiro de Costa was feeding his animals by throwing plants of French beans and corns in a field on his property approximately 2.5 miles away from Venecinio, Ares, Brazil. He then heard something making a sound he described as similar to the sound of a sewing machine, and he noticed that the cows in the field were starting to run away. He looked up and saw a strange man and an unusual object hovering beyond, just feet above the ground. The object was a bright craft in the shape of a basin or an old explorer's hat. It was cream colored and surrounded by a smoky haze. He saw two more strange men. One was in the craft, one and with his head and his shoulders sticking out of the opening, and the other was outside, apparently examining a barbed wire fence, when he noticed there was a third with the other one at the fence. DaCosta had time to observe the men at fairly close range. They were of average height, broad-shouldered, with long blonde hair which blew in the wind. Their skin was extremely pale, cadaver pale, as he described it. Their slanted eyes were not normal men eyes. They wore light brown coverall-like garments fastened to their shoes, and the shoes seemed very strange to him because they had no heels on them. In the surprise, Costa dropped his garden hoe, and the stranger nearest to him came towards him, raised a hand, smiled, and picked up the hoe, examined it carefully, and then placed the hoe back into Costa's hand. In DaCosta's other hand, he was still holding beans and corn. The strange man took them from his hand and started towards the craft. DaCosta had stood there as if paralyzed, but then he thought to himself that they did not seem to be mean or did not want to harm him, so he walked towards the craft. One of the men who had the man who had taken the beans and the corn, and the one in the craft made no move to stop him, but the other one that was standing at the fence made a gesture which seemed to mean that he should stop, which he did. Some of the farmer's animals had approached, and the strangers looked at them with great interest. With words and gestures, the witness tried to tell the visitors that he would be happy to make a gift of one of his sheep, but the visitors did not seem to be interested and did not understand him when he spoke. Unexpectedly, the visitors went into the craft. It rose about 30 feet, accelerated suddenly, and flew away into the western sky at high speed. DaCosta then checked the ground over which the object had hovered, but he found nothing. He did notice the smell of burning coal remained in the air for some time after the craft's departure. His story then appeared in the local press and in the national magazine O Cruzeiro in an article written by famous reporter and ufologist Joe Martins. DaCosta was apparently questioned for several hours by Porto Alegre authorities, and it was determined that he was almost illiterate and did not read science fiction or the newspapers, that he had never heard of flying saucers. Actually, he did not seem to interpret the encounter as extraterrestrial, but thought the men might have been some aviators from a foreign country. So in 2004, a local newspaper who had reported the case back then interviewed the witness's son, who was 21 at the time of the incident. And the son confirmed that his father had told and gave his opinion that his father had not lied. He added that his father had shouted and was heard by neighbors during the encounters, and that he had nightmares following the encounters for years. Several other UFO sightings had taken place then in the area, including close encounters of the third kind, the nearest being on the same day only a few kilometers away. Kind of cool.
Wow.
Hmm.
That's amazing.
I know. I was like, and I'm reading it, and it gets to the end, and he's illiterate, and he doesn't know anything about UFOs, and he doesn't read newspapers. I was like, okay, all right, well, and then he, thinks they're people from a different country flying a different aircraft. I mean, okay, not denial, but I mean, trying to think logically for a guy that doesn't know anything about this stuff. That's a pretty neat story.
I love stories like that when it happens to people who are not very believing,
right,
in the topic, where it just kind of happens,
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I mean, it's just as rare as watching Sweet Robbie G sit down and watch a hockey game. Right?
Well, that's all the time with Rob, isn't it?
Oh, that's all. That's all.
Yeah, those are good stories. I like them. It was like the same one as it kind of brought me back to where the one that I told a while back, where the guy's sheep were exploding in the field. It was like, it just unbelievable, but believable, I guess. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love these ones.
Well, the big thing is we got 4 minutes to go here.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to have sightings, are going to have encounters.
Yeah.
But the big issue that we have to have now is, can people tell the drone from a UFO? I was watching one guy speak on X today,
right,
stating that probably within the next year and a half, we will not be able to decipher a video, whether it's AI or reality anymore.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how are we going to be able, we need to talk about this a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, I only know we got about 4 minutes to go here.
Yeah.
That's scary that that AI is going to take over these videos so quickly that we're not going to be able to tell. And you know what? The people who are absolute critics of this field, they are going to have a heyday, because their empirical evidence and empirical proof is now going to be complete and utter fakery.
Yeah.
Fakery. And that's not a criticism against them.
No.
But we're going to have to become more reliant, in my opinion, on people's stories and encounters. And we're going to have to do more investigation and field investigation, that if somebody's in a hot spot where there is activity continually going on, whether it's UFOs, cryptids, or whatever, that we're going to have to go investigate those spots.
So,
all right?
So what you're saying is we're actually going to go back into the 40s and the 50s the way that they used to do it.
I don't see there being a choice.
No, and that's what I mean. I'm being a little tongue in cheek, but I mean we're going to have to go back to, the old pound on the pavement. And because they obviously didn't have cell phones, computers, AI, phones with cameras on it. Everything was from word of mouth, and they were investigated. So you're right. I think we've gone so far forward that we've kind of ruined, or it's becoming ruined, and we will have to restart again from the beginning and do it the right way.
Definitely bring back the rotary phones.
Oh, damn. Start again.
That's what we're going to have to do. Bring back the rotary phones.
Yeah.
Once we got the rotary phones, we'll be fine.
For sure.
We will be absolutely fine.
And that AI is scary. I mean, some of it is playful, like you can tell, but yeah, some of the stuff that they're developing and that I've seen is like, you got to be kidding me, right? I
mean, we think it's going to affect UFOs. It's going to affect everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to affect everything. AI is completely out of control.
Yep.
I mean, you can manipulate people's voices. I got a buddy of mine who he needs about 15 seconds of a person's voice talking straight, and he can make any audio sound like you said it now.
Yep.
And it's trippy and it's scary. It's very scary, especially if you're broadcasting public like we do on the radio or even on social media. I mean, imagine what they're going to be able to get you to say without you even saying it now.
True.
Freaky. It's just freaky. And when you bring in, it doesn't matter whether it's UFOs or whether it's hiking Mount Everest or whatever. Rock concerts. How many wars are going to start because of this? Because of fake videos.
Yep. Absolutely.
I still don't see a benefit to AI. I just don't. It's more than just ChatGPT. As we say goodnight to Jim. And hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Ball. Rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Rocking it, singing out every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, Space Travelers Club, and on X at #SpacedOutRadio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us. Because together, my friend,
make a mistake. We're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the blue train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. That's a good show.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Very, very good.
Yes, very good, sir.
Right. Tomorrow night on the show, we will have Ron Janix here preparing for Contact in the Desert. And a big thank you to Richard ×2, Deb ×5, Cosmic Joe, and Kira. I apologize, everybody, that I do need to hurry up here and get off to bed because I got to get up early for a morning meeting. Yeah, because I love it when they call business meetings on my time and not their time.
The best.
Oh, it just pisses me off.
Mm-hmm.
It pisses me off. You know, if you wanted to book me for a meeting, you do it during my work hours, not before my work hours. I'm very stubborn about that.
We get to leave early then, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah. So, whatever.
Yep. Is what it is.
It is what it is. So thank you, everybody. To everybody who's new in our chat room tonight, please remember to hit subscribe, ring that bell. We are here 7 days a week for your love, and you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. Much love to everybody. Tim, stick around for a minute, and the rest of you, we'll see you all tomorrow.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.